Welcome to another episode of Prime Time. I've got Nick beside me, Dad on the bench. What a weekend. AFL and NRL Grand Finals done and dusted in the books. How are we feeling after that big weekend?
Very big weekend, very tired. We were lucky to attend both Grand Finals. AFL was one of the greatest games ever. And the NRL on the Sunday backed it up and had one of the greatest comebacks ever as well.
Easily top 5 Grand Final in the NRL. And then the back and forth in the AFL puts that, I'd say, in a top 5 Grand Final as well for the AFL. How was watching it at home, Dad? Because you watched both Grand Finals at home. We were there live and in attendance. What was it like at home?
Yeah, they were both great games. You know, like you said, back and forth. Obviously, you know, it looked like Penrith were going to dominate after that first half, and then Brisbane had that,
20 minutes of
absolute magic. And then you just thought Penrith were gone, and then never say die attitude. The AFL, like you said, back and forth the whole game. We were on the edge of our seats for that one. Obviously, supporting Collingwood as well. It was great to see them get up.
A few times when we were watching, I was like, I'd love some commentary while we're over there. Because watching an AFL game live, you don't get the, you're caught up with the crowd. And we were sitting in a heavy Collingwood-based crowd, so that's where we were getting swayed. I was loving it. We were going nuts.
And it made all the more sweeter that I had money on Collingwood and Penrith to win.
Mate, that day when we sat down, I took Collingwood into Penrith as a duo bet. I was like $2.90. Then the next day, we wrote our bet, the Clive Churchill medalist, Nathan Cleary. Then got on him live, doubled down when he was paying like $7.50. So it was a good day at the office for us, and it was a great weekend. We went out, celebrated with both teams as well. But let's go to our fan question like we do every week. Dad, what's the fan question of the week?
Who had the better grand final, the AFL or the NRL?
Now, we have an unbiased opinion. We attended both. We were at both games live. So we are third-party objectives opinion on this. And I would say, for me, it was AFL.
The AFL had a better atmosphere at the game for me. I just think their crowd's more lively. They get into the game more. And that's just the way the game's played. They call ball. They call for 50. The penalties, the crowd gets into it more. But
I will say both games were bangers. Both games were top 5 games, top 5 Grand Finals.
But to be unbiased, you have to look at the stats. TV audience. AFL had 3.75 million average viewers. The NRL 3.52. So 200,000 more average viewers for the AFL.
AFL crowd attendance. AFL had 100,000 plus people there. NRL had 82,000 people. So when you think about it, AFL full capacity at the MCG. NRL didn't reach 100% capacity at a core stadium.
Well, that's the thing. You could say AFL had more people in the crowd, but they filled it at 100% capacity.
And then you got to think they got the live side as well down near the MCG. So people in Melbourne go nuts for it. They love the live attendance. But again, the live attendance at the NRL, we were there at both games. AFL crowd, they're just going nuts the whole game.
But you got to think
they're yelling every play. The NRL, we were some of the most vocal in the crowd because we had money on Penrith. We were just the crowd isn't the same. I think that 20,000 extra when you're there live makes a massive difference.
It does, but you get NRL people saying ANZ Stadium or a core stadium's got a lower stadium capacity, but they only filled 97.5% of the stadium. 97% of the stadium filled to AFL's 100% filled. AFL wins there. And then you go to the actual game. The AFL had 11 lead changes throughout the whole game.
Very close game.
Very back and forth game. The NRL had a 16-point comeback. So it depends what you prefer. I like the comeback. I think it makes it a bit more interesting.
Oh, we all love comeback stories.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat to the end of the game. But the AFL did have a back and forth game. You didn't know who was going to win throughout the whole thing.
I thought the AFL in that third quarter went a bit quiet. Like they didn't score a lot of points.
Well, this was what happened. Scott Pendlebury was the last goal of the third quarter.
Yeah.
And they didn't score another goal until about 5-10 minutes into the fourth. So there was a long period there where there were no goals, but everyone in the crowd was on the edge of their seats. So I would say the games cancel each other out. They were both unbelievable games. Lead changes, and then one was a comeback with Nathan Cleary putting Penrith on his back. But the general atmosphere of being at the games, I don't know how it was at home, but the atmosphere at the game, the AFL wins that as well.
But in saying that, post-game, the Melbourne fans become so much more civilised post-game. I think the NRL fans get a bit more rowdy at post-game.
Oh, yeah.
The Penrith fans, after they'd won, they're cheering, they're celebrating. Melbourne fans, Collingwood fans, as they leave in the stadium, yeah, it was great, but that's it.
Yeah, we're going to Western Sydney Panthers. You go out to Panthers leagues, fireworks going off, police having to patrol all the cars, going nuts, people hanging out of their cars, beeping, build Nathan Cleary a statue here. AFL, as much as they went out and partied, don't get me wrong, the players are treated like royalty. They got the key to the city that night. It's just a lot more civilised Collingwood area. We got some post-match stuff out there, but I would say ultimately AFL wins the grand final weekend.
I'll say it's a draw.
What about the entertainment? We haven't discussed the entertainment.
Yes,
Kiss
okay.
was great.
Entertainment. We're talking pre-game entertainment. It's not the halftime show. It's not the NFL halftime show. They do it pre-game. The pre-game entertainment. Kiss or Tina Turner the musical. Look, I wasn't born in the 80s. I don't know all of Kiss's songs, but they played their bangers. The whole crowd was getting into it. Rock and roll all night. It was unreal. Tina Turner the musical fell a bit flat. Got a lot of criticism in the media as well. We love Tina Turner. You know, simply the best, one of the greatest rugby league songs of all time. But it didn't deliver. Plus, we were on the side where she wasn't really performing to the crowd. We saw the back of the production. We had to really see Tina Turner the musical live on the screen. So it wasn't really the same. I think Kiss wins the entertainment.
To be unbiased, let's tally it up. TV audience, point to the AFL.
Yep.
Crowd attendance, point to the AFL.
Entertainment, point to the AFL.
Entertainment, point to the AFL. That's 3-0. Atmosphere, that's a tie. Both games were great.
Yeah, and then the games themselves, I say tie.
So AFL wins there with a 3-point margin, and that's unbiased. We're fans of both. It was a great weekend, and I hope every fan enjoyed it.
Can I just say something? The NRL do this every year. They've got to spend some money on that. On the pre
entertainment.
Yeah, they need to spend some money. Get like an international star to come out.
I'd honestly rather
it's
than
about time.
Put more effort into actually building around the event. Like we were there, the AFL have the grand final parade in the lead up. You see, like there's tents everywhere.
They've got festivities outside the stadium.
They've got the Monster Energy doing motorcycle jumps outside the MCG. They've got all these different brands have tents. The Chemist Warehouse tent. Everyone comes. It's like a festival for footy fans. You don't have to be a supporter of Collingwood or Brisbane.
How about this? The night before, the entertainment that they bring, so they get the
perform a concert or something.
Perform a concert the night before, leading up until the game. But you're right, like you see that. I watched something like for the AFL.
There's 100,000 people at the grand final parade.
Yeah. And that's the day before the final.
And it's the day before. You get Collingwood players, the Brisbane players coming out.
And it's
people
not like
just want to see the players up close and personal, and then it's just the footy fans getting along with each other, enjoying the day. They've got live performances.
Where would they do that in Sydney, in George Street?
Do it in Olympic Park.
Olympic Park's empty. What else have they got going on there?
Yeah, they've got nothing going.
Knockout Festival, where was that?
Knockout, I think that was in Olympic Park. But I don't know. I think I'd rather see them invest more into the week and get it around the players. But let's move on to our end of season review. We've done this with every team in the NRL. Now we're at the final two teams. Brisbane end of season review. What a great season they've had. To come from where they were, a lot of people had question marks on Kevin Walters as a coach. Going into this season, I think they exceeded expectations reaching the grand final. They were firing on all cylinders. Reece Walsh was a massive plus to the Brisbane team.
Best signing of the season.
A signing of the season, and what he added to that team, out the back, he's the most elusive player in the comp. But then Ezra Mann coming into his own as a half. And then people like Pat Carrigan, Payne Haas being the best in their positions for that team. I think as a season for them, it's not going to get any better. They just missed out. They very well could have won the grand final. If a few more things go their way, they're not far off winning the grand final next year.
Anytime a team makes the grand final, you're going to get a score of an A. Mm-hmm. Their season was, up until the last 20 minutes of the grand final, was the perfect season. They were about to win. They definitely shouldn't have lost that game. They let it go between their grasp. But for a team like for a coach like Kevin Walters to have all these question marks at the start of the season and then to reverse all those and shut up the haters by making the grand final, you had a great season. And looking ahead to next season, I think they're in prime position to probably be favourites up there with Roosters or Penrith.
But they lose two players, two critical
Farnworth
players.
and Flegler are going to be big losses.
Massive losses.
More so losses than Api Coruscant was to Penrith and, kick out to Penrith. They obviously maintain. These guys are two critical forwards.
Centre forward.
Yeah,
but Herbie's probably Herbie. You've said it before. He's probably the best centre in the game.
Who do they replace him with?
They'll have a junior probably coming up. They've probably got someone there.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Hopefully they can bounce back from it. But again, exceeded expectations through the season. Brisbane fans should be happy. Even after the game, they said, look, they're proud of them. And they'll go on to hopefully be there again next season if they continue playing that way. But the Penrith Panthers, on the other hand, Panthers season in review, again, A+.
A+ easily. You're the Premiers, three-peat. There's not much more you can say about them.
I think we were singing their praises all season. I think from just how they play the game. Arm wrestle, grind other teams out. They're the best at it. They're the most disciplined team in the comp. We were saying it all year. It's looking like a Penrith three-peat, and it was.
Why they get an A+ for me is just the epitome of isolating that grand final, being down 16 points. They could have put their heads down. They could have said, you know what, we've won two. Let's just rest here. and just play out the rest of the game.
Try a short kickoff, hit the panic button a little bit. They didn't.
They stuck to the game plan. They remained disciplined. Nathan Cleary just kept going. He kept putting the team on his back and just made plays. And ultimately they won. And it just shows you what champion sides do, what champion players do.
I don't think that was Penrith's best performance in the grand final.
No,
they didn't
no
play.
way, no
You
way.
know, they had a lot of possession in that first half, and
They should have scored 4 or 5 tries in the first half.
Honestly, they needed to play.
As well.
I mean, you went on about the fullback Walsh. He did make a lot of errors in that grand final.
To be fair,
and I think a lot of those errors that were made in the first half cost Brisbane the game because they got really tight at the back end of that game.
For sure.
And they didn't hold on defensively.
And they couldn't because they were buggered. They were buggered.
But as a season overall, again, bar that being down by 16 points in a grand final, they were the best rugby league team.
They were front runners all season.
And they're minor premiers, again, and it's a credit to Ivan Cleary, who I think is the best coach out and out in the NRL. To do that 3 years in a row, something that no one's ever done, no coach has ever done, with a team that he's had to sub people in. Like, look at even the bench, for example, bringing in Jack Cogger, bringing in Luke Garner. Again, as a coach, he solidified himself as being up there with the Wayne Bennett's and the Craig Bellamy's. And I think Penrith Panthers, again, going into next year, are still going to be a threat. So, season in review for them, A+, still the best team in the comp, and they proved it again on the weekend. Ivan Cleary, best coach in the comp.
Well, if you compare him now to the best coaches of all time, for me that's Craig Bellamy and Wayne Bennett. I think he's near exceeded Wayne Bennett as a coach of all time. He hasn't passed Bellamy yet because I think Bellamy's made more grand finals. But winning 3 in a row, that's something Bennett never did.
And I think he's responsible for the winning as much as the players are out there. And Nathan Cleary, 40-20 and, scores those individual tries. But think about what he does when he puts Jack Cogger in that team and forgoes having Peachy on the bench, or when he takes Jerome Luai off and puts Cogger on.
It's not even that. It's more so, you look at from their first grand final against Melbourne in 2020, they've lost Api Coruscant, they've lost Kikau, they've lost Kurt Capewell, they've lost Matt Burden, I think they lost another winger or centre on the left side. They've had mass exodus of players throughout the last 4 years, and they've still maintained their supremacy at the top of the league.
They lose Crichton this year, so
it's a credit to the organisation, recruitment, and I think coaching.
I'm saying when you lose players and you're still performing as the best team in the comp, that's the coaching. You have to give credit where it's due. And you make mention, Dad, you always say Wayne Bennett, in the sides that he had back-to-back or he won grand finals, he had the best players in the world. Penrith, besides maybe Nathan Cleary, they're not really the best players at their position in the game. Dylan Edwards is maybe a top 5 fullback, but he's not the best fullback. Isaiah Yeo, he's one of the better locks, but he's not one of the best forwards. They don't have Payne Haas, they've got James Fisher-Harris.
Well, they're also losing some players next year. Spencer Linew's going, who I think was critical off the bench for them as well in terms of go forward. So, again, they're going to have to do it again, and that begs the question, can the Penrith Panthers make it 4 in a row?
Dad?
Oh, look, I think as you start to win grand finals, the hunger, I mean, they showed it in that game. They did come back, but the hunger goes because you've done it before. Like, for me, like Nathan Cleary, what's he still got to achieve? Like,
That's right, and he's like many other players that have won 3 now.
But has anyone in sports ever exceeded 3 championships, like 3 premierships?
In the NRL?
Yeah, even in the NBA, three in a row?
No, no one really goes 4.
No one's gone for 4. No one in sports has gone for 4. It's very hard to remain...
Jordan retired twice before he went for the 4th.
At the top of the food chain for so long without you, again, losing players with recruitment. Because now there's questions about Luai. Obviously, they're losing Spencer Lineu next year as well.
Crichton.
Yeah, Stephen Crichton gone to the Bulldogs. So I think as much as I'd like to see history being made, they just created history by winning 3. But to go for 4, I think is asking too much. With the player losses that they have, I think they'll be up there still as one of the best teams in the comp at the top end of the ladder, but I can't see them going 4 in a row.
If not them, then who? Who's going to win?
Can I ask you a question? Nathan Cleary, there's talk about him after maybe next year getting him into rugby. Do you think he'll go to rugby and maybe that's the next mountain that he'll need to climb?
We spoke about it earlier in the year. I want him to go because I feel like if you do that, you've won 3 premierships. If you go win a Rugby World Cup,
I agree.
You're the greatest Australian athlete of all time.
What more is there for Nathan Cleary to achieve in the NRL? Okay, he's won premierships. He's won 3 of them. He's won State of Origins. He's been halfback of the year. The only thing he hasn't won is Dally M. He hasn't won a Dally M, right?
Robbed by Jack Wyden.
I think he should have won one by now. Okay, but in saying that, if he goes on to win a World Cup for the Wallabies or, contributes to a British and Irish Lions tour or something like that, he could go down as one of the best Australian sporting athletes of all time. So it could be very enticing for him to be one of the league players that converts over to rugby, he'd be an unbelievable fly half. His kicking game is second to none. His running game is also, I think, goes underrated in terms of rugby league. He's one of the most complete players. So if I'm Rugby Australia right now, I'd throw everything at him.
No, it's just a blank check here.
Yeah.
Checkbook, whatever you want, we'll pay it. We got some big donors. We got some third parties.
And you got to think he would take the money at this point. He's won premierships, but what more is there to do in the NRL in terms of your legacy? He's only 25 years old, which is scary.
Well, that's the thing as well now. Okay, is he a top 3 player of all time? Is Nathan Cleary a top 3 player of all time as it stands right now? He's won 3 premierships. He's won an Origin. He's won a World Cup. He's the best player in the league unequivocally.
In terms of his position, a halfback, who's up there with him? You got the Fittlers, Darren Lockyer, Andrew Johns, right? Thurston. I wouldn't say he's top 3 right now. He's definitely going to be one of the greatest players of all time when it's said and done.
But what's preventing him from being top 3? Just longevity. Well, you're just delaying saying that he's one of the greatest. If he retired today, I would be comfortable saying that he's better than Fittler. He's better than Jonathan Thurston and Andrew Johns. Is
he better than Cooper Cronk?
Yes, he is. He's had more of an impact on his team.
It's accolades. How many grand finals did Cooper Cronk go to? You know, again, he's won 3 premierships, which is massive. But accolades. How long did Cameron Smith play for and do at the top of his position? How many grand finals did they win? Because I count all the grand finals.
No, but it's not even that. Okay, Cooper Cronk.
It's accolades. Cooper Cronk won accolades.
Cooper Cronk won 6 grand finals. I think he was Clive Churchill in one of them. Nathan Cleary's already got 2 Clive Churchill medals. He's done a 3-peat. He's won an Origin. He's going to become the top point scorer of all time once it's all said and done as well. So I understand you're just saying, yeah, he needs to earn it a bit. You're saying it a bit early.
I'll put him in there. In fact, I would put him in terms of playing ability in front of Cooper Cronk. It's just accolades. It's whether or not he's going to win another. How many appearances in grand final?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's what separates
That's what separates him. There's an argument to say he's better than Brad Fittler. You know what I mean? As a
So you're
player.
saying he will become...
That's what I'm saying. When it's all said and done, he will go down as one of the greatest.
I heard that Nathan Cleary every day this week or last week went to a core stadium where there was no crowd and just soaked up the atmosphere every day last week. Mate, he's he's very, very dedicated to the cause. He's, like in terms of Andrew Johns was a great player, but I mean Andrew Johns really didn't play
a lot of games.
Didn't play a lot of games in the end because of injury, and off the field Andrew Johns had his demons, but Nathan Cleary is he's just one of those players. He's dedicated to his team, dedicated to his coach. His dad's the coach. Does he go to another club and try and
never
another club?
Never.
So that's what I'm saying. Bar a move to rugby union, he'll go down as the greatest rugby league player of all time, and that's probably surpassing Cameron Smith if he keeps on this track of grand finals and winning and point scoring.
I think halfbacks only reach their peak really when they're hitting that 28 to 30.
Yeah.
Range.
Well, if you look at Cherry Evans now, he's
36.
He's in the best,
35,
probably
35
the best form of his life, the way he's been playing for Queensland and Manly. So if you're going to say that Nathan Cleary's got at least another 10 years of playing, that's a whole bunch of Origins.
You've got to think, he's got so many Origins ahead of him as well. And I think more premierships ahead of him. So Kangaroo Tours. He's just going to collect the accolades between now and the time he retires. And when it's all said and done, he will be top 3 greatest of all time, if not the greatest. So I don't think right now you can make him top 3. There's an argument for him to be top 5 greatest rugby league players of all time, but when it's all said and done, he will be there.
He's like Tom Brady at the start of his New England career. Just starts off on fire, just winning and winning.
Could you make a documentary on him right now? Yes, you could. How they made one for Brady. It's not a last dance, but they could definitely do one on him.
Well,
right now.
they did. There was a 30 for 30 on the New England Patriots comeback in that Super Bowl against Atlanta.
They should do one in the grand final.
Well, they were gone.
16 points down in the grand final.
On the back of him, only if he was mic'd up, it would have been great.
But let's talk about the opposing half that played in the grand final. Adam Reynolds. Okay, South Sydney basically wrote this bloke off a couple of years ago. We don't want to give you 4 years. Okay, at best we'll give you 1 year, 2 years because you're at the end of your career.
You don't have much football left in you.
Okay, he goes on, pretty much gets captain of the year at the Dally M Awards this season. Over the last 2 seasons, he's been one of the shining lights at Brisbane. Some call him the coach of that team. He brings experience. His kicking game is second to none. He kicked every goal on the weekend in the grand final.
With a banged up leg.
Credit where credit is due. Unfortunately, the result didn't go his way. He was distraught after the game. You could see it. If 1 or 2 things go his way, they win a premiership. That's twice now he's lost a premiership to Penrith. But calls from the media. I don't know if you saw Buzz Rothfield on Twitter. A lot of keyboard warriors on Twitter after the grand final. a lot of people saying, riding the Brisbane bandwagon, then changing their tune after that. But he said that it could be time for Adam Reynolds to retire. He didn't see, he thought he's getting too old. The injuries are taking a toll on him. He was the reason why Brisbane lost some of his decisions on the field. I think that is a gross overreaction.
It's definitely a gross overreaction. Adam Reynolds over the last 2 years for Brisbane has been their best player, bar Reece Walsh this year. But his injection into that club has changed the whole atmosphere at the club. Kevin Walters last year is getting called a shit coach. He's getting calls to be sacked. He got sacked from Queensland essentially because he took the Brisbane role. But Adam Reynolds coming into that side, giving them structure, taking them to a grand final where they were 16 points up. Why would he retire for? He just got captain of the year, had a great season. Okay, he gets injured and he's injury prone, but he was doing that in his 20s as well. So I don't think that's an age thing.
But what's shit from the media is they ride the Brisbane Broncos all season, right? What a season they're having. They're the best attacking team in the comp. Reece Walsh is on fire. They get in a position to win the grand final. It slips out of their fingers.
I agree.
And then they just take a shit on the guy who's probably tore his hip from that injury, and I'll be crying myself to sleep after losing that grand final and saying, he needs to retire. Buzz Rothfield, respectfully, no.
If they win the grand final, they say he plays another 3 years.
Exactly right.
That's why, and it's a 2-point game.
Yeah.
That's why. But even if Buzz,
they're too fickle.
Buzz, he's an aging half. Name 2 other halves that you would sign to replace him.
Buzz Rothfield, if you're going to call for him to retire, name someone who's going to replace him. Who's playing at that level that he's playing at?
I'll tell you right now, at the Bulldogs, I'll pay him $2 million to come play halfback.
To partner Matt Burden at the Bulldogs.
Dad, name 3 other halves in the comp you could get to replace Reynolds.
And they're all aging, the halfbacks. DC's aging.
All the good ones are aging, yeah.
Foreign's aging, and he's still coming. He's still turning up next year.
I mean, Jack Cogger had a good game on the weekend. Would Brisbane want him at halfback? Probably not.
He's already signed with Newcastle, so that they can't have him.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But there you go. But I'm saying Adam Reynolds, I think 80% of the clubs in the NRL would sign him if he was a free agent. South Sydney hate themselves for letting him go. So why the hell would Brisbane, looking ahead, be like, you know what, let's make a move for the future and get rid of our aging half?
Shit take from Buzz, but what was great from the weekend was the refereeing performance. We made a skit during the week. It's like, they can't get Ashley Klein. They can't get Sutton. They can't get all these... Ben Cummins. People that are shitting themselves on the big stage.
Casey Badger.
Missing forward passes, whatever it be. They get Adam G. And the guy kept the whistle out of his mouth the whole game, let the boys play, and that's why it was one of the best grand finals in the last decade. Because, again, it was a free-flowing game. There was barely any 6-again calls as well. Barely any penalties. There wasn't any milking of penalties either. But on his refereeing performance, I think it assures that he does the grand final again. Right now, he's the reigning heavyweight champ of the referees, Adam G.
Well, he was his first grand final. All the pressure was on. We did make the joke that they've only put him in there as a scapegoat.
Yeah.
But he outperformed all the expectations. He didn't fuck up. And all other referees that have refereed this year or have ref big games, they make errors. That's like going forward now, it's his title to lose. If he doesn't make a refereeing mistake, he's now the best referee to referee a game.
Some people are also critical that why do they referee the grand final like that? Why do they referee State of Origin different? Why do they referee the grand final different to a regular season game? Why can't all games be refereed like that?
Well, just because of the pressure of it. That's all it is. It's just the pressure.
There were moments in that where the bunker could have made decisions, where they've made decisions in the past, where they've given penalties for high shots. They just let it go, and it makes for a better spectacle. I mean, Bill Harrigan was probably one of the best referees ever, and that was what he did. He used to just let the game flow.
Swallow his whistle instead.
Just let the game flow. I mean, if they're like half a metre offside, you can't constantly call penalties because it breaks the momentum of the game.
Especially in a fast-paced game like today. If you're just going to keep calling it, you're going to ruin the quality of football.
But the way it looks like, Ashley Klein, Cummins, you're all number one contenders now. When the big game is on, everyone's looking at Adam G right now. Adam G is the Conor McGregor of referees. He's the money fight.
He's the champion.
Yeah.
And if you want to contest him, don't make any shit calls.
Yeah, referee some better games.
I mean, they don't have the 2-referee system anymore. It's back to the 1 ref. So I don't see who's going to be challenging him for the title unless they get, a resurgence from Henry Perinara or someone. But other than that, I don't think many referees coming through the woodworks.
Well, off the back of the grand final, Mal Meninga has named his Australian squad with a few omissions.
Reece Walsh, Kalen Ponga missing from the side.
Now, people have been calling for reasoning why James Tedesco is getting picked. Is it loyalty for him for being captain? The fact that a Dalian medalist can't get picked in an Australian team doesn't make sense to me.
just be picked in the squad at least. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand Tedesco's your long-standing fullback. He's the captain of the team, and it's kind of like a legacy pick. You just want to let him drive off into
I'd
the
still
sunset.
pick him. I would pick him as well. I'm not saying he should not be picked. Tedesco, again, based on experience and what he brings to the table, he's still a first-class quality player. But the fact that you can't have Kalen Ponga in the team, who won the Dalian medal, Reece Walsh, who's been the best fullback in the
And he
comp.
was he outperformed Tedesco in Origin as well, Reece Walsh. So, like, pick the best players. If the Australian squad...
It's a shit call. It's shit call by Meninga.
No, but it's not
But
even that.
I don't understand what's it being picked. What's the
criteria,
criteria? What are you picking this off?
My issue is when you look back, at people's careers and you look
Yeah.
at their resumes of caps for Kangaroos, which people do bring up when they're talking about the greatest of all time.
Mm.
These are games that Reece Walsh and Kalen Ponga could have on their resume that they're not being picked for.
I personally don't think they care too much.
But they don't
Because
care,
not
but-
a lot of people are caring as much as they do about state of origin than they do international football. International football is an afterthought right now. The fact that Mal Meninga gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to coach an Australian team or even just pick the team, I don't know if he's even doing much coaching, is pretty stupid to me anyway. But at least pick the right players. There's some questionable picks in there, but overall, I think it's a great team. Nathan Cleary got picked. There's a question mark on his injury. I don't even know if I'm going to be watching all the games anyway, but I just can't. I don't understand how you can't pick a Dalian player.
I'm saying most of the picks pick themselves. When you have Addo Carr on the wing, Cherry Evans, Pat Carrigan,
Munster.
Tom Flegler, Harry Grant, Cam Murray, Payne
Surprising
Haas.
centres like Katoni Staggs in there in the centres.
Him and Fido getting picked, I was genuinely surprised by. I just thought, they'd probably go with a different direction or even maybe try and balance it out, picking New South Wales players. But at the end of the day, you're right. Mal Meninga doesn't have to coach this team. They just go
I'd
out
do it
there.
for free.
You'd do it for free.
Yeah.
I just want the
gear.
The gear.
Yeah.
Free accommodation.
Give me some polos and
Yeah,
pay for
honestly.
my hotels.
I mean, but then again, if Tedesco gets picked beyond this, that's when it becomes more alarming because it's a Pacific test, whatever it is. I don't think anyone really cares. That's why no one's causing a big fuss. But if it's like a proper World Cup or an actual game where it matters and Tedesco's getting picked, that's when I'll start.
I'm not
calling for
taking a
his
shit
job.
on Tedesco. I think he's still top 5 fullbacks. But at the end of the day, Kalen Ponga and Reece Walsh were better players throughout the season.
And Dylan
So,
Edwards, and he just won the comp as
The
well.
Dalian Awards is a regular season award of who is the best in their positions. Okay, and Kalen Ponga is, by regular season standards, is the best fullback in the comp, and he's not getting picked in the
And it's
Australian
time to
team.
blood new players, man. I can't, really, Tedesco.
That's what these tests are
I mean,
for.
like Crichton's,
Dylan Edwards.
no, but I'm saying players have retired this year from
Representative football, like the Canberra player Jack White.
Jack Whiten. Do the right thing, Tedesco. Just retire, man. You've had your moment in the sun. It's time to let the young guns come in and do their job.
He probably says it differently. He probably says like he's mentoring people over, and he gets a free trip out of it.
Mate,
I don't know.
no one's mentoring
Anyone.
Walsh, mate. I'm
His,
telling you.
his head's above where he needs
Reece
to be.
Walsh.
Okay, let's go to our AFL Grand Final.
AFL Grand Final was one of the greatest things to watch live. As Collingwood fans, yes, it might be a bit biased. We got to witness one of the best Grand Finals and Collingwood getting the victory. But what bugged me about it was post-game. Yes, okay, the referees maybe had some questionable calls, but that's what's going to happen in the
The
game.
one questionable call was whether or not that was a play on or not at the end in the fourth.
Whether they took advantage
They
of
were
it or not.
outside 50 Brisbane, and whether or not they actually took advantage of the
They
play.
called for a free kick,
Yeah.
and I think it was Zach Baylor, the guy that kicked a couple goals already. He just chipped the ball back over his head. And it didn't look like he took full advantage of the penalty, but he did kick the ball. I heard the whistle when I was in the crowd, so I don't know how a player on the field couldn't hear the whistle either. So I don't know what the excuse is. But the referees...
They had a review of the game.
The AFL, as usual, after every big game or even after every game, they have an
umpires.
umpire review. And after the umpire review, they came back and said there was only one call that that would have been reversed if it was a properly refereed game, and that was a 50 given to Brisbane, which they ended up scoring a goal off. McCluggage scored off the goal. So for people calling that, saying that was a highway robbery of a game and that Collingwood didn't deserve the win, the one call that would have been reversed would have gone in Collingwood's favour. And that's what that was actually a game-changing, pivotal goal for Brisbane as well. So all these people, all these Twitter warriors that they want to be keyboard warriors on Twitter, and they're trying to call out Collingwood for not winning, just shut up.
I don't think the officials were on their side that much, as much as people are making out to be online. I think it was a well-umpired game. And you saw it went back and forth. At one point, Brisbane were up in the fourth quarter. You can't say that it was a poorly officiated game. Everyone was on the edge of their seats the whole time. Both teams played well. Again, I genuinely think that that's going to be the grand final next year.
Collingwood, watching it from home, like Collingwood dominated possession, they dominated field position, but just weren't able to convert their goals. And I started to worry towards the end of the game that they were going
to... How many behinds?
I think they kicked like 15
15
behinds at the end of the game. But in fact, Brisbane Lions, they kicked some screamers for goals. That's what kept them in the game. Collingwood were kicking behinds, Brisbane were kicking goals. But ultimately, Collingwood led at the end of every quarter. They were dominating the whole game. And I think the better team won in the end. And
they looked like the better team throughout the game.
I think for both AFL and NRL, the two best teams made the grand final, and they both put on a great production.
But the thing is, with the AFL next year, it's hard to go back to back because it's like the NFL. There's more of it. I think there's more parity in the talent across the league.
100%.
And it's harder to be consistently good. I mean, you actually see it. Brisbane Lions early dynasty in the 2000s, and I think Geelong in the 07 to 010 period.
Okay.
Then Hawthorn went 3 in a row. Richmond won 3 out of 4. So they're prone to having long periods of success. The Melbourne Demons were supposed to be that team that had that long period of success, but now it's Collingwood's turn.
Well, how about we do some way too early predictions for next season in every code? Right now, Rugby League in the NRL.
2024 premiers.
Who's the 2024 premiers?
Well, if you look at history, Penrith lost to Melbourne. They came out and won the grand final next year. I think it'll be Brisbane's turn next year. The Broncos lost this year. Yeah, that's going to hurt. They'll come back next year.
Well, you were saying all pre-show, you have to win one to lose one. So that works for Brisbane, and that's true throughout
Lose
history.
one to win one.
Yeah, lose one to win one. I'm going to go...
Brisbane 06 they lost. Oh, sorry, Melbourne lost to Brisbane 06. 07 they won. Manly lost in 07 to Melbourne. 08 they won.
Yeah, no,
who else was there?
Everyone's talking about numerology as well. You got the Bulldogs, 2004, 2014,
Bulldogs
2024. I'm not going to read into that too much. I don't look too much into that. I'm actually going to go Brisbane as well, but I think it's going to be a Brisbane Roosters grand final.
Roosters have got good talent. They've got Leonu coming over, Dom
The
Young.
recruitment that they've had with an already, if they stay injury free, they're going to be up there. They even scraped into the finals this year when I think they shouldn't have. So I'm going to go Roosters Brisbane grand final next year. I think Penrith get knocked out in the prelims or in the semi-finals.
I just think, you're right. The hunger and the parity across maybe other teams being a bit more, it'd be their first time there trying to upset them. It'll happen. They'll get knocked out.
AFL, on the other hand, I'm going Collingwood back to back.
Collingwood back to back easily. Yeah. It's not even a question.
I think they're confident. Even some the fans are saying, hopefully this is just the start.
No, but who are their two best players? Probably the Kairouz Brothers, 20 and 22. So they've got young players that are going to be able to go on a dynasty run. And other teams in the AFL, Melbourne Demons were supposed to be the next top team. They're getting up there in age now. I think Brodie Grundy's going to leave the team. Brisbane Lions, they could go again, but they've had that same, top 4 finish for the last 5 years.
GWS will probably be sticking around the top as well.
Sydney Swans are probably the only danger team for me because they got a lot of young players that are going up there, but they're just too small. They need to get a bit bigger.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to sign one big free agent, nice big ruckman.
Okay, and now what about the Rugby World Cup? I know we've kind of gone in and out of it. We've tuned out at Stand because Australia's out, and we don't really watch much of it anyway because it's just goal kicks. But
as the most casual fan would say, I'm going for the All Blacks.
I'm going for the All Blacks. I think the All Blacks take it out. I'd like to see someone like Ireland win it, but I love legacy. Let's go the All Blacks to win the Rugby World Cup.
Show us your future.
Yeah, what's your big future?
Well, I took a multi after winning with Penrith this week. I took a multi straight away. I took Brisbane Broncos. I took Collingwood in the AFL. I took New Zealand to win the World Cup rugby, and I took Philadelphia Eagles. Your mate Jordan Mailata. They lost last year to Kansas City. I got 1,000 to 1. Put $10 on to win $10,000.
It's not bad.
Let's get it.
I've got to wait a little bit of time to collect.
You're looking at it at least 12 months.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess
At least 12 months.
Looking at the EPL, like I said, we have jumped on the Arsenal bandwagon. I can't even say bandwagon. We shopped our services around to some other teams when we did the tours. Firmly in Arsenal. Chelsea got the win last night. What's the update across the EPL?
Well, Arsenal, in great fashion, won 4-0. So we're getting back on that winning track.
A lot of weird results.
A lot of weird results, though. Man United lost to Crystal Palace. Man City lost to Wolverhampton Wolves, which was the biggest upset. I think that cost about everyone on Sportsbet their multis, or every betting platform their multis. And then if you look at Chelsea this morning winning 2-0, but the biggest upset of the weekend for me was Tottenham beating Liverpool. Tottenham with Ange Postecoglou just keep winning, and I don't know how it's working. Liverpool copped 2 red cards during the game, so I don't think that's really going to be. When people say like, Tottenham's riding high, they've just had stuff go their way, and I think they're going to fall off soon. I don't want to be a despair merchant for Tottenham, but it's going to come to an end soon.
I don't know. Everyone's saying it's going to come to an end. They just keep surprising you every week. I know they're playing good football. You can't deny that.
No, but they're playing good football. I mean,
still early days, boys. Still early days. A long season.
They're tied second now on the ladder.
Okay.
Man City are still first. But if you're a Man City fan and you're losing to the Wolves, how's that happening?
Everyone has that upset. You know, I mean,
Well, that's why they call it the best league in the world, is because you could go on any random Saturday or Sunday and they're going to probably lose a game to another competitive team.
Okay, also that big fight announced. We're moving over to combat sports. Tyson Fury versus Usyk announced again in Saudi Arabia. I think he loves fighting there, Tyson Fury. Just the money must be crazy from the Saudi princes. But does this overshadow this cross MMA boxing fight between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou now?
Well, what's bigger, Ngannou versus Fury, UFC versus MMA, or Usyk versus Fury?
UFC versus boxing.
An undisputed heavyweight bout where they said it hasn't happened since 1999. Who was a fighter after Tyson?
Mike Tyson.
Lennox Lewis. I think he's the last fighter to hold all titles. So this will be the first time in like 24 years that one fighter is going to hold all WBC, all these promotional championship belts. And it's happening 2 months after the Ngannou fight. So
they're calling the Tyson Fury Ngannou fight like a tune-up before he goes on to face Usyk. So again, it's going to see who is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
But I'm just saying, if you're Tyson Fury, why would you organise a fight 2 months after? At least maybe finish the Ngannou fight, then announce the Usyk fight. I feel like you're just sucking the air out of the Ngannou fight.
Nah, at the end of the day, you're going to have that MMA versus boxing aura around it, and people are going to tune in regardless. My only thing with Tyson is, why do you keep saying you're retiring then? You just signed in fights left, right, and centre, but you announced retirement 3 months ago.
You get more money. You get more money.
He's announced against Usyk before, so the fight might not go ahead. He's announced against Joshua, never went ahead.
Yeah.
He's announced against Ngannou now, so I don't think he's ever retired. As long as the money's green and keeps coming in, he's never retired.
How much money do you want to make there? You just had your reality TV show on Netflix. I mean, the Gypsy King is the ultimate hustler. Keep coming in. His brother Tommy's fighting KSI as well. That's going to be a money fight. That's October 14th. So
what would you rather
It's going to be a
watch?
big few months of boxing and MMA.
What would you rather watch? Ngannou versus Fury or Fury versus Usyk?
I want to see the undisputed.
You'd rather watch Usyk?
I want to see
I feel
who's
like
the best heavyweight in the world.
Historically, that fight would mean more. And Ngannou, you're expecting it. You're expecting
how
him to
big
get
was
pumped.
the Mayweather
McGregor fight?
McGregor fight.
It's one
That
of the
was
biggest
massive.
pay-per-view.
But
One of the biggest pay-per-view events in history.
What was bigger, Mayweather McGregor or Mayweather Pacquiao?
Mayweather McGregor. He beat
Mayweather,
it in numbers, in terms of box office. Yeah. Now, I don't think Francis Ngannou is Conor McGregor. Firstly, he can't talk and sell fights like him. But at the end of the day, it's still going to be an interesting fight. But ultimately, I want to see Usyk versus Tyson Fury. That's the fight everyone wants to see.
And I'm happy to go watch it in Saudi as well.
Yeah, maybe. I guess we'll see. This last one caught me a bit off guard. I was going through social media. We followed Jimmy Butler. We were there when he lost his, should have been his NBA title. I don't know if he should have been there. Okay, but regardless, that NBA have their open media day today. Okay, you got Jokic being asked questions if he knows Deion Sanders.
Routinely every year, the NBA has their media day. Everyone comes in, takes photos. That's usually their headshots for the rest of the season.
Last year, Jimmy Butler rocked up. He's got dreads coming out of his hair, new look. This year, he goes for a completely different look. Gothic look, painted black nails, fringe over the face, right? He's got piercings coming out of his eyes, got a mouth piercing. And then you had Bam Adebayo asking him, why are you doing this for? What is this? I don't know. Because the lip piercing's a little bit annoying.
Like you said, he had a history of, playing games with the media, changing his hairstyle for, the media day photos, so it's there for the rest of the season. But this year, I just think he's gone too far. He's gone full goth. He's got the earrings in. His teammates are laughing at him. They don't know whether it's like, is he going through something?
The media asked him about it. He said, this is just my emotional state right now. I'm emo. But I think he's playing the part. He said to Bam, media day is my Halloween. This is my day to muck around.
Taking the piss out of him?
He takes a piss. He goes all out. I don't know. Some people were a bit surprised by it. I think it's hilarious.
The painted nails and maybe the eyebrow piercing, I think, is taking it a step too far. I think you're just sending the wrong message. People are starting to ask, the wrong questions about you, Jimmy. Because, his teammates are like, is this legit? How do I approach this? Can I laugh at him or is that insulting him? And that's kind of like society now. If someone does this stuff, you're not allowed to say anything.
He's playing the media. It's good fun. If I'm the Miami Heat, though, and you got your headshots, because these are the headshots that come up when you score a basket, at the pre-game when you're there at American Airlines Arena, what is it, Crypto? What is it? What's the arena name?
I can't remember.
Anyway, when you're in Miami and the pre-game, all the introductions and all that, he's just going to be there in goth look with the fringe over his face.
What happened was last year he had the dreads for about maybe 3/4 of the season. They go, listen, this is enough. That doesn't look like him, so they switched it back to an old one. So they're probably going to do that again this year. I mean,
if I'm Miami, I'm going to ask him, please, next year, don't shave your head or something.
Just ask him not to come.
Yeah. But I think that's our grand final primetime wrap-up. We're going to continue the shows this week, covering the NFL, covering the NBA, covering sports and entertainment.
Don't forget the NBL.
And the NBL, yeah, we can't forget that.
EPL.
Maybe the A-League as well, if we're bothered. But make sure you stay tuned to Primetime on YouTube at The JBK Show. And you can catch us on socials at Picklebet as well over on Instagram. I did lose the NRL tips this year. That means I will have to get a 40-year-old virgin wax over my body. I was freshly shaved.
I'll wait for his hair to grow back.
I'm going to wait for the hair to grow back, and make sure you catch our 40-year-old virgin tipping wax edition out on Instagram and TikTok. But that brings us to the end of the grand final season, the NRL and AFL. Make sure you stay tuned, and that's back to you in the studio, George.